Everyone thought I was the perfect husband. Solid career, beautiful wife, respected in the community. But perfection is often just a well-maintained lie. My name is Robert. I'm 42, and for 20 years I built a life that looked flawless in everyone's eyes. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning, had coffee with my wife Sarah, reviewed reports from the agricultural corporation where I worked as operations manager, and headed to the office before the sun was fully up. Our town, Riverside County, is one of those places where everyone knows everyone, where your steps are watched, your choices discussed at the local cafe, and your reputation is worth more than money in the bank. Sarah and I married young. She was 19, I was 22. It was a marriage celebrated as a perfect union. She, the daughter of the owner of the most established pharmacy in town. I, the son of respected farmers, with an agriculture business degree and a promising future. Our wedding was celebrated at the main church, with 300 guests and a reception the town talked about for months. In the first few years, everything seemed to work. We bought a house downtown, with a wide porch and a garden Sarah tended to with almost religious dedication. She organized book club meetings with her friends. I participated in the local business association. We had dinner on Sundays at my parents' house. It was a social choreography executed with precision, a stage play where everyone knew their lines. But there was something no one saw, something I myself struggled to name. In the last 5 years, I began to feel a void growing silently, like weeds under concrete. I'd lie next to Sarah every night and feel as if there were an invisible pane of glass between us. She talked about the kitchen renovation, about neighborhood gossip, about vacation plans, and I listened, answering on autopilot, while a part of me screamed for something I couldn't identify. I started spending more time at the office, not because I had extra work, but because at home the silence was deafening. The silence of questions I didn't ask, of conversations we didn't have, of intimacy that had turned into a mechanical routine. Sex happened maybe once a month, always on Saturday night, always the same way, always with the lights off, like a duty fulfilled, not like desire. Sarah never complained. She was the model wife, organized, discreet, always well presented. But I knew she felt it too. I saw it in her eyes when she looked at me over her coffee cup, an unasked question. Where are you when you're here? I was trapped. Trapped in a life I built brick by brick, in a narrative the whole town validated. Robert, the exemplary husband. Robert, the competent professional. Robert, who never gave reason for wagging tongues. Perfection has a price, and I was paying with pieces of my soul. It was last December that things started to change. We were at the height of winter, that cold that freezes at dawn and vanishes by noon. People walked the streets in thick coats, talking about the approaching Christmas, about the end-of-year parties. And I felt like I was watching life happen through a fogged-up window. That was when I started taking the trips. At first, they were legitimate trips. Meetings in Omaha about new irrigation techniques, conferences in Kansas City about agricultural management, visits to model farms upstate. Sarah never questioned them. She trusted blindly, as she always had. And I used these trips as an escape valve, moments where I could simply not be Robert from Riverside County. But then came the apartment. No one knew. Not Sarah, not my parents, not my work partners. It was a small studio downtown in Omaha, in a discreet building 3 blocks from the train station. I rented it using a bank account I opened specifically for this, paid in cash, never left traces. The apartment was simple. A double bed, a small table, a worn armchair that came with the furniture. On the white walls, no photos, no memories. It was a blank space, a page where I could write anything, or where I could finally write nothing at all. I spent entire weekends there. I told Sarah they were work commitments, refresher courses, visits to suppliers. She believed it because our whole life was built on mutual trust, or on her illusion. In the apartment, I simply existed. I read books I'd never read at home, watched movies Sarah would consider inappropriate, walked the streets anonymously. For the first time in 20 years, no one knew me, no one expected anything from me. I could be anyone. Or no one. But there was more to it than that. something I still didn't have the courage to admit completely, not even to myself. I started noticing things. The way my gaze lingered when certain men passed by. The strange tension I felt in locker rooms, in gyms, in places where raw masculinity was exposed. For years, I pushed these thoughts to the back of my mind, labeling them as admiration, as envy of a physique, as anything other than what they really were. The apartment became the place where I could at least acknowledge these thoughts, not do anything with them yet. Just acknowledge they existed. As if I were slowly opening a door I had kept locked my entire life. Sarah didn't suspect a thing, or maybe she just pretended not to. Our life followed its predictable course. Dinners at the in-laws on Thursdays, church on Sundays, walks through the city park. She would talk about having children again, a subject I dodged with surgical precision. How could I bring a child into this charade? But people started noticing little things. My business partner commented that I seemed different, lighter, when I came back from trips. Sarah's sister-in-law asked if everything was okay with the marriage, because you two seemed distant at parties. I denied everything with rehearsed smiles and excuses about work stress. The truth is, I was drifting away. Not just from Sarah, but from the entire life I had built. Like an actor tired of the role, starting to forget the lines, letting the mask slip. December brought the holidays. Christmas at my parents' house, traditional dinner with the extended family, 30 people around the table, conversations about the harvest, local politics, who got married and who got separated. Sarah sitting beside me, smiling at the aunts, serving dessert, playing her part to perfection. And me there, present in body, absent in soul. It was the first week of January when everything started to crumble. I returned from a work trip on a Tuesday afternoon. Sarah was tidying up the bedroom closet, organizing winter clothes. When I walked in, she had my gray coat in her hands, the one I used on trips to Omaha. And in her hands, fallen from the inside pocket, was the key. A simple gold key, with a tag that had just one number written on it. 304. The silence that settled in the room was different from all previous silences. It wasn't the comfortable silence of routine, nor the empty silence of emotional distance. It was the silence of truth knocking at the door, demanding to be recognized. Sarah looked at the key. She looked at me. Her eyes, always so serene, showed something new, a mix of confusion, fear, and a question she didn't want to ask. "What is this, Robert?" Her voice trembled. Not with anger yet, but with something worse, with certainty disintegrating, with trust cracking like fine porcelain. I could have lied. I could have improvised a story about equipment storage, about a space rented to keep company documents. My mind, trained by decades of maintaining the facade, was already formulating plausible justifications. But something in me didn't want to lie. "It's for an apartment," I said. My voice sounded strangely calm, as if it belonged to someone else. "In Omaha." The color drained from Sarah's face. She sat slowly on the bed, still holding the key as if it were evidence of a crime. And maybe it was. An apartment. She repeated the words as if testing a foreign language. "You have an apartment that I don't know about." It wasn't a question. It was the realization that our life, so carefully constructed, had a secret basement. And she had just discovered the door. "How long?" "6 months." She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, there were tears she wouldn't let fall. "Is there someone there? Are you having an affair?" The question every wife would ask. The most obvious explanation for a husband with a secret apartment. And I could have said yes. I could have turned this into a conventional betrayal, something the town would understand, that couples overcome, that has established protocols of confrontation and reconciliation. But I told the truth. No, there's no one. Then why? Now her voice was rising, her restraint breaking. Why do you need a secret place away from me? Away from our home? Away from our life? How could I explain? How to put into words the silent suffocation, the feeling of living the wrong life, the need for a space where I could at least question who I was? "I need a place where I can think," I said, and it sounded pathetic even to me. "Think about what?" She was standing now, the key clenched in her fist. About us? About the marriage? About leaving all this? About me, Sarah. About who I really am. She looked at me as if she were seeing a stranger. And maybe she was. Maybe I had always been a stranger, hidden beneath layers of proper behavior and met expectations. I don't know you, she whispered. 20 years of marriage, and I don't know you. There was no anger in her voice, only a deep sadness, mourning the loss of certainty. She left the key on the dresser and walked out of the room. I heard her footsteps going down the stairs, the kitchen door closing. The silence returned, but now charged with something new. The impossibility of turning back. I picked up the key. The metal was warm from the heat of Anna's hand. The number 304 shone in the afternoon light. She had no idea that key would open much more than just a door, because the apartment held secrets that even I wasn't ready to face. Secrets about repressed desires, about an identity struggling to emerge, about a man tired of pretending. And now, with the key exposed and the charade beginning to crumble, everything I had locked away was about to surface. The question was no longer whether Anna would discover the whole truth. The question was whether I had the courage to finally admit it to myself. And if our perfect life would survive what was kept behind the door of apartment 304. Look, I know you must be thinking I'm crazy, and maybe you're right. But when I found that key hidden inside the book, when I saw that address scribbled on the crumpled paper, something inside me shifted. It wasn't just curiosity. It was an almost physical need to understand what was happening with the man I'd shared my life with for 20 years. So I went. I took the car that same afternoon, while Robert was still at work, and drove to the address. An old building downtown, nothing flashy, one of those 70s constructions that go unnoticed on any corner. I parked across the street and stood there, staring at those identical windows, wondering which one held my husband's secrets. The key shook in my hand as I entered the building. Apartment 304, third floor. There was no elevator, so I took the stairs, every step seeming to amplify the beating of my heart. I didn't know what I was going to find there. Part of me expected a mistress, maybe. Women's clothes scattered around, perfume in the air, obvious evidence of a traditional affair. But something told me it was more complicated than that. When I opened the door, the first scent that hit me was fresh coffee. Someone had been there recently. The apartment was small, a simple studio, but tidied with a care that surprised me. And that's when I started noticing the details. The decor was completely different from our home. While at home everything was neutral, beige, safe, this space had personality. Posters of rock bands on the walls, bands I'd never heard Robert mention. A bookshelf full of books that weren't about business or finance, but novels, poetry, philosophy. There was a guitar leaning in the corner, slightly dusty, but clearly used. I approached the coffee table and saw photographs, not in formal frames, but scattered, as if someone had left them there after flipping through memories. Robert in places I didn't recognize. Robert laughing in a way I rarely saw at home. And in some photos, Robert with someone else. A younger man, slender, with that kind of smile that lights up the whole face. My stomach turned. It wasn't jealousy, not yet. It was confusion. It was disorientation. It was like looking at a stranger who just happened to wear my husband's face. I kept exploring, because in that moment I needed to understand. The tiny kitchen had 2 sets of everything, 2 mugs drying on the rack, 2 plates. It was silent confirmation that this space wasn't just a solitary refuge. It was shared. When I went into the bathroom, that's where everything became undeniable. 2 toothbrushes in the holder, 1 blue, which I recognized as the brand Robert used, and 1 green, smaller, clearly belonging to someone else. Men's toiletries, but different brands than what he used at home. A deodorant I'd never seen. A mint-scented soap that wasn't his. I sat on the edge of the bed because my legs just wouldn't hold me anymore. The bed was made with care. The sheets were a shade of dark blue that Robert always said he disliked. But there he was, in that secret room, sleeping in blue sheets with someone who wasn't me. It was when I opened the closet that I felt the real impact. Robert's clothes, yes, those casual shirts he never wore at home. But also another man's clothes, jeans a size smaller, t-shirts with indie band prints, A leather jacket that had that scent of someone young, those woodsy colognes that guys in their early 20s wear. I picked up one of the t-shirts, I don't know why. Maybe to have some tangible proof that this was real. And that's when I found it. In the pocket of one of the hanging jeans, a movie ticket. 2 tickets, actually, stapled together. From last month. The movie I had suggested we watch together. And Robert had said he wasn't interested. Can you understand what that means? That small domestic rejection, which at the time I had let slide, now took on a completely different weight. He hadn't seen the movie with me because he had already seen it with someone else. With him. With the owner of that green toothbrush. I was trying to process all this, sitting on that bed that smelled of a life I didn't know, when I heard the sound. A phone vibrating. It wasn't mine. I looked around and saw on the bedside table a cell phone I didn't recognize. Basic, cheap, one of those you buy at any convenience store. A burner phone. A secret phone. The screen was lit up with a message notification. And the name that appeared there, that name I would become obsessed with for the next few days, was Marcus. I'm getting off early today. Meet you there at 7 p.m.? My heart raced. It was 4 in the afternoon. I had less than 3 hours before someone arrived. Before he arrived. Marcus. Who was Marcus? The man in the photographs? The owner of the green toothbrush? The owner of the leather jacket? I grabbed the phone, my hands shaking so much I almost dropped it. There was no passcode. He had left a secret phone unlocked. Part of me wanted to laugh at the irony. So much effort to keep that world hidden, yet such a basic slip-up. I opened the messages, and there it was, the whole story in small text fragments, months of conversations. I miss you. When can I see you? That restaurant you liked has an opening today. I love you too. I love you too. Those 4 words hit me like a punch. Robert had said I love you to someone named Marcus. How many times? The messages scrolled back for months, maybe over a year. While I was at home, planning dinners, organizing our life, believing I knew the man I slept with every night. He was building an entire parallel life. But the strangest part, the part I still can't fully explain, is that while I was reading those messages, while I saw the irrefutable proof that my husband was living a lie, I didn't feel anger. Not yet. What I felt was something deeper and more confusing, because the messages weren't just romantic. They were vulnerable. The Robert writing those messages was a man I didn't know. A man who talked about fear, about not knowing who he was, about spending his whole life pretending. A man who said things like, "With you I can be myself," and "I don't know how to live divided like this, but I don't know how to live without you either." There was pain in those words. There was a suffering I had never noticed in the 20 years we were together, and that made me question everything. Did I really know the man I married? Or had I married a performance, a version of him he thought the world expected to see? I was so absorbed in reading the messages that I almost didn't hear when the phone started ringing. The screen lit up again, and there it was. Marcus calling. My finger hovered over the answer button. For an insane moment, I considered it. I considered answering and talking to this Marcus, asking who he was, what he had that I didn't, why Robert chose to build this secret world with him. But I didn't answer. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. And then, in a decision I hadn't planned, that came from a pure impulse to understand, I did something I had never imagined doing. I decided to stay. Not there in the apartment, that would be too much confrontation. But I was going to come back. I was going to find out who Marcus was. I was going to see them together, understand this dynamic, this parallel life. Because after seeing all that, after reading those messages full of a vulnerability Robert had never shown me, I needed answers. I put the phone back exactly where it was, straightened the t-shirt I had moved, checked to make sure I hadn't left any traces of my presence. And I left that apartment with more questions than when I entered. In the car, driving back home, my mind was racing. Who was the real Robert? The serious, closed-off man who came home every day at 6 in the evening? Or the man in the smiling photos and the vulnerable messages? And Marcus? How did they meet? How long had this been going on? I had 3 hours to decide if I was going back there, if I was going to hide somewhere and watch when Marcus arrived at 7. 3 hours to become the kind of person who spies on her own husband. 3 hours to decide if I really wanted to know the whole truth. Because here's what no one tells you about discovering your life is a lie. Part of you still wants to believe it isn't. Part of you desperately looks for an alternative explanation, anything that makes sense and doesn't destroy everything you've built. But I had seen too much. I knew too much. And now, the question wasn't if I was going to find out the truth. The question was whether I was ready for what that truth would mean for everything I thought I knew about my life. At 6:30 in the evening, I was back. Not inside the building, but parked where I could see the entrance. I had bought a coffee at a nearby diner, as if that would make the situation less surreal. Me, a 42-year-old woman, married for 2 decades, sitting in a car staking out her own husband's secret apartment. And then I waited. Waited to see who Marcus was. Waited to see the truth with my own eyes. Because after everything I had seen that afternoon, I knew there was no turning back. Pandora's box was open, and I wasn't going to be able to close it again. The clock read 6:50 when I saw him. A young man no more than 25 walking toward the building with that stride of someone going home. Dark hair, faded jeans, the leather jacket I had seen in the closet. He stopped in front of the building, looked up at the 3rd floor window, and smiled. And it was in that smile that I understood. That wasn't the smile of a one-night stand, of a fleeting fling. It was the smile of someone in love. It was the smile of someone going home. While I watched from afar, there was another story unfolding in that parked car. His story. And so we sat there, waiting, watching. My wife's head was resting against the cold car window, her eyes fixed on that entrance door. I could feel every second passing like an eternity. The silence between us was dense, heavy, full of all the words we hadn't said yet. She didn't know that I already knew what she was about to discover, and that irony was tearing me apart inside. 20 minutes passed, half an hour. She didn't even blink. Every person entering or leaving the building made her body tense up and then relax with disappointment. Until finally he appeared. Marcus. My stomach turned. Even knowing this moment would come, seeing him there outside that car, walking toward the building where we lived together, was like taking a punch. He was exactly what you wouldn't expect. 6'1", broad shoulders, stubble, a plaid flannel shirt open over a white t-shirt, work boots covered in dust. He came straight from the construction site where he worked as a structural engineer. Nothing about him screamed the stereotype people expected when they heard the word lover. He was masculine, rugged even, the type you'd find fixing a truck engine or drinking a beer at a roadside bar. And it was exactly this contradiction that had destroyed me. My wife gasped beside me. "It's him," she whispered, more to herself than to me. "It has to be him." I couldn't answer. My throat was tight. Marcus stopped in front of the building, took out his cell phone, typed something. Seconds later, my phone vibrated in my pocket. I didn't need to look to know what it said. "Pulling up now. Are you home?" My wife looked at me. "Are you going to answer?" And there, in that car, with the man I loved waiting outside, and the woman I had promised to spend the rest of my life with beside me, something inside me finally broke. "I need to tell you something," I said, and my voice came out barely a whisper. She turned completely toward me. Her eyes were red, but dry, as if she was beyond tears. "Then tell me." I took a deep breath and began. "I met Marcus 2 years ago. On a construction site I was supervising. He was the structural engineer responsible for the building's foundation. On the first day, we exchanged maybe 3 words. He was objective, direct, competent. The kind of professional you respect immediately." Pause. I swallowed hard. But there was something about him. In the way he spoke, how he moved. A confidence, a presence that I had never felt before. And that scared me. My wife remained silent, just waiting. Weeks went by. We saw each other at the site almost every day. Technical talk, coffee, lunch with the team, normal, professional. But I started noticing things. The way my heart raced when he arrived. How I caught myself looking for excuses to be near him. And one day, my voice cracked. I closed my eyes. One day it rained hard. Everyone left early, but Marcus and I stayed reviewing the projects in the container that served as an office. We were side by side, looking at the structural plans, and our hands touched. It was a second, maybe not even that. But when our fingers brushed, it was as if the whole world stopped. I opened my eyes. My wife had tears streaming down her face now. I pulled away immediately, apologized, said I had to go. But he held my wrist, gently, firmly, and said, "You are not alone in this." The silence that followed was deafening. And right there, I knew that everything I had built over the last 20 years was on a false foundation. Because the truth is, I had never felt that way. Not with you. Not with anyone. She sobbed. Once, then covered her mouth with her hand, as if wanting to contain the sound. "Are you telling me that you are gay?" I said. And for the first time in my life, that word left my mouth without shame, without fear, without weight. I am gay, and I spent my whole life trying not to be. Tears began to run down my face too. I loved you. I swear I loved you. In the way that I could. But it was an incomplete version of me that loved you, and you deserved more. You deserved someone whole. She took a deep breath, trying to control herself. How long? How long have you two? 18 months. Another sob. 18 months. I didn't want to hurt you. I never did. But I also couldn't live that lie anymore. Every night, lying next to you, I felt like I was betraying not only you, but myself. And then Marcus showed up and for the first time I understood what it was to feel like someone sees you. Really sees you. My wife closed her eyes. Tell me how it was. That caught me by surprise. What? Tell me how you fell in love with him. I need to understand. I swallowed the lump in my throat and went back in time. After that day, I tried to avoid him. I missed work, made up meetings, anything not to be near him. But 2 weeks later, he called me. Said he needed to discuss some structural adjustments. I set it up at a neutral cafe. Public, safe. I could see the scene as if it were yesterday. He arrived 10 minutes late, apologized, ordered a black coffee, no sugar. We talked about the site for maybe 5 minutes, and then he stopped, looked me in the eyes and said, "I didn't call you here to talk about concrete." My breathing was uneven now. He told me he had come out at 28, that he had lost friends, family, almost his career, that he knew exactly what I was feeling because he had already been there. And then he said something that changed everything. You can spend the rest of your life running from who you are, or you can start living for real. But you need to choose. I looked at my wife. She was motionless, silent tears falling. It took 3 more months for me to have the courage to make that choice. 3 months of conversations, of coffee, of a friendship that slowly transformed into something more. Until one night, after everyone had left the site, it was just the two of us. He was showing me some modifications to the project, and when he turned to explain something to me, we were so close I could smell the sawdust and concrete on his clothes. I closed my eyes, reliving it. And then I did it. I kissed him. It was fast, desperate, like someone drowning who finally found air. And when we pulled apart, he smiled and said, "Took you long enough." I opened my eyes and faced my wife. From that day on, everything changed. It wasn't just physical attraction. It was connection. It was talking for hours about nothing and everything. It was him getting my references, my fears, my dreams. It was feeling that, for the first time, I wasn't playing a role. I was just me. Silence. "And what about us?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Our 20 years? Our plans? Our life?" It was real, I said immediately. But it was a reality built on a lie. I married you because it was what I was supposed to do. Because my parents expected it. Because society expected it. Because I myself hoped to fix me, to force myself to be normal. I took a deep breath. But you don't fix something that isn't broken. And I wasn't broken. I was just lost. She looked out the window. Marcus was still there, waiting. Does he know about me? He knows everything, since the beginning. And he told me he wouldn't get involved with me until I resolved this. Until I was honest with you. And why were you never honest? That was the question I asked myself every night. Because I was afraid. Afraid of losing you. Afraid of losing our family, our friends, our life. Afraid of what they would say, of what they would think, of becoming the topic of gossip, the reason for pitying looks. Tears were still falling, but mostly, I was afraid to finally admit out loud what I always knew deep down. That I would never be the man you deserved. And that maybe, just maybe, I deserved to be happy too. My wife stayed silent for a long time. Then, she opened the car door. "Where are you going?" I asked, alarmed. "I'm going to meet the man who stole my husband." Before I could stop her, she was already crossing the street. I ran after her, but she was fast. Marcus saw her coming and his face went tense, confused. "You must be Marcus," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. He looked at me, then at her. "Yes, I'm his wife." The discomfort on Marcus's face was visible. I'm sorry. It wasn't supposed to be like this." "How was it supposed to be?" she asked, and there was no anger in her voice, just weariness. "Tell me, how was it supposed to be?" Marcus swallowed hard. "I don't know, but not like this." She studied him for a moment. "Do you love him?" The question caught everyone by surprise. Marcus looked at me, then back at her. "Yes, I love him." "And does he make you happy?" "More than anything." She nodded slowly, and then to my absolute surprise, she said, "Take care of him." Because I couldn't. Not in the way he needed. And then she turned and started walking back to the car. I caught up to her. "Wait, where are you going?" She stopped, faced me, her eyes red, but dry now. "Home. To process this. To figure out what to do with 20 years of lies." "I'm so sorry," I said, and my words felt so inadequate, so small against the pain I had caused. "Me too," she replied. "But you know what the worst part is? The worst part isn't that you're gay. The worst part is that you never trusted me enough to tell me. 20 years. And you never gave me the chance to understand you." She got in the car and drove off, leaving me there on the sidewalk with Marcus by my side and the weight of 2 decades of lies finally lifted from my shoulders. Marcus put his hand on my shoulder. "Are you okay?" I looked at him. At that man who had shown me what it was to live authentically. And I realized that, despite all the pain, all the confusion, for the first time in 20 years, I was actually breathing. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But it's a start." He nodded. "Yeah, it's a start." And there, standing on the sidewalk as the sun began to set, I understood that telling the truth was just the first step. The real question wasn't anymore whether I was gay or not. It was, what would I do with this truth now that it was out? Because one thing was certain. My life as I knew it was over. And what came next? Well, that would depend on how many people I was willing to disappoint to finally stop disappointing myself. Marcus broke the silence. "Does she know about your family?" "My family. My conservative parents. My brothers. My nephews." "No," I said. "She was the first." "And what are you going to do?" I took a deep breath. The million-dollar question. "I don't know. But I know I can't go back anymore. The door has been opened, and on the other side of it is everything." He pulled me into a hug. And there, on the street, for the first time in public, I let him. I let someone hug me. I let someone see me. I let someone know. And while I was there, in his arms, a single question hammered in my head. If my wife reacted like this, how the hell was my family going to react? Because the truth was out, but the consequences were just beginning. The truth was out there, and there was no turning back. My wife stood paralyzed for a few seconds that felt like hours. Her face went through every possible emotion: confusion, disbelief, pain. Then came the anger. "You're kidding me, right? This is a sick joke." I shook my head. I couldn't speak. The words had run out. She started pacing the room, her hands shaking. 20 years, and you come tell me this now? That you... She couldn't even finish the sentence. She collapsed onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. The sound of her crying was like knives in my chest. I had caused that. I had destroyed her life with my truth. "I'm sorry," was all I could manage to say. "I didn't mean to hurt you." She lifted her head, her eyes red and filled with hate. "Didn't mean to hurt me? You lived a lie with me for 2 decades. You used me as a cover. It wasn't like that." "Then tell me how it was," she screamed, standing up. "Explain to me how you sleep with me at night, kiss me, make love to me, and all the while you're thinking about men." Every word was a slap in the face. And the worst part was that she was right. I had lied. Not deliberately, perhaps, but I had lied nonetheless. I tried. My voice came out weak. I really tried to be what everyone expected of me. "And me? And the kids? Do we mean nothing to you?" "You mean everything," I said, and it was true, but I can't pretend to be someone I'm not anymore. She laughed, a bitter, humorless laugh. "Sure, now you want to be authentic, and screw what happens to me, right?" There was nothing I could say to fix it, so I stayed silent as she grabbed her car keys and stormed out, slamming the door. The house fell silent, a heavy, suffocating silence. In the following days, the news spread like wildfire. I don't know if she told someone or if one of the neighbors heard the argument, but suddenly everyone knew. My mother called crying. "How could you do this to her? To us?" My father was more direct. "You brought shame to this family." My older brother stopped answering my calls. My sister sent a text saying she needed time to process. At work, conversations would stop when I entered the room. Colleagues who were once friendly now avoided me. I heard whispers in the hallway. "Did you know Robert is gay? His poor wife. She must be destroyed." The pressure was suffocating. I woke up in the morning with a weight on my chest, as if I were carrying the world on my shoulders. The fear was constant. Fear of losing everything. Fear of ending up alone. Fear that my children would hate me forever. But there was also shame. Deep, rooted shame. Shame for being who I was, for having lived a lie, for having hurt the people I loved. At night, when the house was too quiet, the voice of self-criticism was deafening. "You are a failure. You couldn't be a good husband. You aren't man enough. Why can't you just be normal?" It was on one of those dark nights that Marcus called. "How are you?" he asked, and the genuine concern in his voice almost made me cry. "I don't know," I admitted. "Everything is falling apart. Do you want to talk? I can come over." Half an hour later, he was at my door, not with judgment, not with pity, just with presence. We sat on the porch, each with a beer in hand. For a long time, we said nothing. We just sat there, in that comfortable silence that only exists between people who truly understand each other. "You know," he finally said, "when I was about 25, I was married too." I turned to him, surprised. "Seriously?" He nodded. 3 years of marriage. I loved her, truly. But something always seemed out of place. I thought it was because we were too young, or because I worked too much. There was always an excuse. What happened? One day I met someone, a guy from work. We started hanging out as friends, nothing major. But then I realized I was waiting for his messages more than anything else in my day. That I smiled differently when I was around him. Marcus paused, taking a sip of his beer. And then I understood. I couldn't fool myself anymore. "And how did you handle it?" Badly. Very badly at first. He laughed humorlessly. I lost family, I lost friends. My dad didn't speak to me for 5 years. It was the hardest time of my life. But was it worth it? Marcus looked at me with those eyes that always seemed to see beyond the masks. I won't lie and say it was easy. It wasn't. But today, when I wake up, I'm not living a lie. I don't look in the mirror and see a stranger. And that is priceless. Something inside me broke. The tears I had been holding back for days finally came. Marcus pulled me into a hug, and I cried on his shoulder like a child. "Why is it so hard?" I asked between sobs. "Why can't I just be who I am without destroying everything?" "Because the world isn't ready yet to accept that love doesn't have a single shape," he said softly. "But that doesn't mean you have to live in the shadows." That night, something changed in me. The shame was still there. The fear too. But a spark of something new began to grow. Defiance. Why should I hide? Why should I live a life that wasn't mine just to please other people? The next day, I was having coffee at the neighborhood bakery when my sister-in-law walked in. I waited for the look of disapproval, the judgment. But she sat down across from me. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Honestly? No." She sighed. "My sister is destroyed." But I was thinking. For all these years you always seemed distant, like you were playing a role. I didn't expect that observation. "You noticed?" "I think deep down everyone noticed. Nobody just wanted to admit it." She stirred her coffee. "Look, I don't understand all this, and I'm still processing it. But you've always been a good father, a good brother-in-law. That hasn't changed just because you are who you are." It was a small gesture, a small acceptance. But in that moment, it meant the world. A few days later, at work, one of the younger colleagues asked me to lunch. He was in his early 20s, always kept to himself. "I heard what happened," he said as we sat down, "and I just wanted to say, I think it's brave." "Brave?" I laughed bitterly. "I destroyed my family." "You were honest, finally." He looked around before continuing in a lower voice. "My older brother went through the same thing a few years ago. He was married too, had kids. And today, he's much happier. The kids understood, in time. And if mine don't understand, then you will have done the right thing anyway. Because living a lie doesn't help anyone. Not you, not them." His words echoed in my head for days. The turning point came 2 weeks after the confession. My wife asked to talk officially about the separation. She was calmer, but determined. "I can't stay in a marriage where my husband doesn't love me the way I need to be loved," she said. And there was sadness, but also strength in her words. "I'm so sorry," I said for the 1,000th time, "for everything." "I am too. But we can't change who we are." She paused. "The lawyers will handle the details, but I need you to promise one thing, that you'll continue to be a present father for the kids. They're going to need you. I promise." Signing the separation papers was simultaneously liberating and devastating. It was the end of an era, the crumbling of a life I had carefully built over 20 years. But it was also the beginning of something new, something true. That night, Marcus came to pick me up. "You need to get out of this house," he said. "Come on, let's get dinner." We went to a small restaurant, far from my neighborhood, a place where no one knew me, where I could simply exist without the weight of judgment. During dinner, I realized something. For the first time in weeks, I was actually smiling. Not a forced smile, not a mask, but a genuine smile. "What are you thinking about?" Marcus asked. "That maybe this is the start of something good." "It is." He held my hand across the table, a simple gesture but loaded with meaning. "You just needed the courage to let the lie go." The restaurant was full, but in that moment it felt like it was just the two of us. And for the first time, I didn't feel shame. I didn't feel fear. I felt relief. Relief at finally being myself. At not needing to pretend anymore. Not needing to hide anymore. Of course, there were still challenges ahead. My parents were still distant. My brother still hadn't started talking to me again. My kids would need time to process everything. But I had made the most important choice. I chose authenticity over approval. I chose to live my truth instead of living others' expectations. And here we are in December 2025, in a cultural moment where the masks are finally falling. The masks falling trend has dominated social media, with thousands of people sharing their own stories of late-blooming authenticity. I'm not alone on this journey, and neither are you, if you're going through something similar. When we left the restaurant that night, the streets were decorated for the holidays. Colored lights, families walking around, a mood of celebration in the air. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged to that world. Not as a shadow, not as an imposter, but as myself. Marcus hugged me before I got in the car. "Proud of you," he whispered. And as I drove home, a house now empty, but also full of possibilities, I understood something fundamental. Letting the lie go didn't mean losing everything. It meant gaining myself. But this journey of self-acceptance was just beginning, and the hardest truth of all was yet to come. The suitcase was open on the bed. That bed. 20 years of marriage summarized in 3 drawers of clothes, a few books, and the framed photo of my dog who died 2 years ago. I didn't know if I was running away from something or running toward something. Maybe both. Maybe neither mattered as much as me finally stopping the lying. My wife was in the kitchen. I could hear the sound of the coffee maker, that same morning sound that had been the soundtrack of my entire adult life. She didn't cry when I said I was leaving. In fact, I think she knew before I did. Women always know. She just asked if I was sure, and when I said yes, she nodded. Silence. Then, quietly, "I always knew you were distant, but I never imagined it was because of this." Carrying that suitcase to the car was like carrying the weight of all the years I'd wasted being someone I wasn't. Every step seemed to scream, imposter, liar, coward. But when I put the last box in the trunk and closed the door, something changed. The air was cold. It was December, almost the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. And I felt for the first time in decades that maybe the darkness was necessary before the rebirth. The apartment I rented was small. 1 bedroom, kitchenette, tiny bathroom. The walls were white, empty, with no history. Perfect. I needed a space without memories, without the ghosts of who I pretended to be. That first night, I sat on the cold floor because I hadn't bought furniture yet, leaned my back against the wall, and cried. I cried for the perfect husband I never was. I cried for the years I stole from my wife, pretending I could love her the way she deserved. I cried for the man I had buried inside me for so long that I thought he had died. But he hadn't died. He was there, in that empty apartment, breathing for the first time. Marcus called me that night. He didn't ask how I was, because he already knew. "Have you eaten anything?" was the first thing he said. I laughed, half crying, half laughing. No, I hadn't eaten. "I'm bringing food. Do you like Thai?" 30 minutes later, he was at my door with 2 bags of food and a bottle of wine. He walked in, looked around, saw the completely empty apartment, and said nothing about it. He just sat on the floor next to me, opened the takeout containers and started eating. "You don't have to talk," he said. "Just eat. We'll figure out the rest later." It went on like that for weeks. Marcus would show up with food, sometimes with coffee, once with an air mattress because he said I couldn't keep sleeping on the floor like a monk doing penance. He never pressured me, never asked when I was going to make up my mind or own who I was. He was just there, present, patient, real. And slowly, I began to open up. Not all at once, because I couldn't, but pieces, fragments of my truth that I had buried so deep, I didn't even know where they were. I told him about the first kiss I had with another man, at 17, in a locker room after a soccer game. I told him about how I forced myself to date girls, to get married, to build a whole life based on what I thought it was supposed to be. I told him about the shame that woke me up at 3 in the morning, sweating, terrified that someone would find out. Marcus listened to everything, and when I finished, he just said, "You don't have to carry this alone anymore." That was the night it happened. We were lying on the air mattress, side by side, staring at the ceiling. Marcus turned to face me. "You know you deserve to be happy, right? Not the happiness others say you should have. Your own happiness. The real kind." I turned to him, and for the first time in my life, I let someone see me completely. No mask, no pretending, no fear. He touched my face slowly, as if asking for permission. I nodded, and when we kissed, it wasn't desperate or urgent. It was gentle, it was honest. It was the kind of kiss that says, "I see you, and I accept you." "I love you," he said, softly, like a secret he was entrusting to me. I couldn't answer right away. The words got stuck in my throat, not because I didn't feel it, but because I had never said that to another man. I had never allowed this kind of love to be real, to be possible, to be mine. But then, I took a deep breath and let it out. "I love you too," and the world didn't end. There was no thunder, no divine punishment, no catastrophe. There was just the two of us, in that empty apartment, building something real over the ruins of what I had been. But love doesn't erase pain. The grieving continued. I lost friends. People I thought knew me, who said they supported me, suddenly vanished. Unanswered messages, canceled invitations, averted eyes. My family went silent. My brother stopped calling me. My sister sent a text saying she needed time to process. Time. As if my sexuality were a tragedy that needed to be mourned. I was losing people, but I was also gaining something I never had. Myself. And then, unexpectedly, my ex-wife called. My heart raced when I saw her name on the screen. I answered in fear, expecting anger, accusations, maybe even hate, but her voice was calm. "I just wanted you to know I don't hate you," she said. "I'm hurt, yes. I'm confused, but I also want you to be happy, truly." I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting compassion from someone I had hurt so much. "I'm sorry," was all I could say. "I know," she replied, "and I accept it. We can't go back, but we can move forward, each in our own way, and maybe one day we can be friends again. Not now, but one day." When I hung up the phone, I cried again, but this time it was different. It wasn't despair. It was relief. It was the beginning of the end of the guilt. Marcus was with me at that moment. He hugged me and said, "You're doing the hardest work there is. You're becoming who you've always been." And he was right. I was. Slowly, painfully, but I was. I started attending LGBTQ+ support groups. At first I just stayed quiet, listening to others' stories. Men and women who had gone through what I was going through, some in their 40s, 50s, 60s. "It's never too late," they said. And I believed them, because I needed to believe. It was at one of those meetings that I met Carlos, a 52-year-old man who had come out of the closet after 30 years of marriage. He looked me in the eyes and said, "You will survive. It will hurt. It will be lonely at times. But you will survive. And eventually, you'll look back and be thankful you had the courage." Courage. I had never thought of myself as brave, but maybe that was it. Maybe courage wasn't the absence of fear. Maybe it was doing the right thing, even while shaking with terror. In December 2025, there was a growing movement on social media called Queer Joy. The idea was simple. Stop defining the LGBTQ+ experience solely by pain, suffering, and struggle, and start celebrating joy, love, and authenticity. I started following these accounts, reading these stories, and for the first time, I saw that my future didn't have to be just about surviving. It could be about living, truly living. Marcus and I started planning. Not a wedding, not yet, but a life. A life where I didn't have to hide. where I could hold his hand in public, where I could say, "my boyfriend," without lowering my voice, where I could, finally, breathe. But there was one conversation I hadn't had yet, the hardest one of all. My parents. They knew I had separated. They knew I was going through a tough time. But they didn't know why. I had avoided it, postponed it, made up excuses. But I knew that if I truly wanted to live authentically, I needed to tell the truth, to them, and to myself. Marcus held my hand the night before I traveled to my parents' house. "No matter what happens," he said, "you're not alone. You have me. You have this community. You have yourself. And that is already a lot." I knew he was right. But still, when I got into the car the next morning, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. The hardest conversation was still to come. And this time, I wasn't going to run away. I was outside my parents' house, the car parked in the same spot where I used to park when I was a teenager. That patch of asphalt had witnessed so many versions of me. The perfect boy who always got good grades. The young man eager to impress. The man who got married to prove something. And now? Now I was someone they had never truly met. Marcus was holding my hand over the gear shift. His was warm, firm. Mine, icy and trembling. "You don't have to do this today," he said for the third time. "We can go back, wait for the right moment." I shook my head. There is no right moment to destroy the image your parents have of you. You're not destroying anything. You're presenting the truth. To them, it's the same thing. Marcus squeezed my hand tighter. "Hey, look at me." When I turned, his eyes were serious, intense. "No matter what happens in there, you're leaving here with me. Understood? You are not alone in this." I took a deep breath. I nodded. I let go of his hand and opened the car door before my courage evaporated. The front door was unlocked, as always. My mother was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. The smell of rosemary chicken filled the hallway. It was my favorite dish when I was 12. She still made it every week, even though I hadn't lived there for years. "You're early," she said, without turning around. "Your dad's in the office, finishing up some emails. Go call him? Dinner is almost..." "Mom, we need to talk." Something in my tone made her stop. The wooden spoon froze in midair. She turned slowly, and for the first time, I really saw my mother. Not the idealized version I carried in my head, but the 62-year-old woman with gray hair barely disguised by home dye, age-spotted hands, eyes tired, but always watchful. "What is it?" she asked. "Did something happen?" "Call Dad, please." She dried her hands on her apron slowly, as if she wanted to delay whatever was coming. "You're scaring me." "I know. I'm sorry. But it has to be now." 5 minutes later, we were all sitting in the living room. My dad in his armchair, my mom on the sofa, rubbing her hands nervously. Me standing, because sitting felt impossible at that moment. "I spent my whole life trying to be the son you wanted," I began. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "The one who got good grades. The one who went to the right college. The one who got the good job. The one who married a beautiful and successful woman." "And you are all of that," my mother interrupted, confused. "You've always been our pride." But it wasn't me. Silence. "I married Sarah because it was what was expected of me. I worked a job that suffocated me because it seemed like the right thing to do. I built an entire life based on what I thought you wanted to see, not on who I really was." My father leaned forward. "What are you talking about?" I took a deep breath. This was the moment. The truth I had kept for 36 years. "I'm gay." The words fell into the room like a glass shattering on the floor. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother brought her hand to her mouth. My father froze, processing. "I know this isn't what you expected to hear," I continued. "I know it destroys the image you had of me. But I can't live a lie anymore. I married Sarah loving her as a person, but not the way a husband should love a wife. And that was unfair to her. It was unfair to me. It was unfair to everyone." "Are you sure?" my mother whispered. "Sometimes we confuse things, go through phases." "Mom, I'm 36. It's not a phase." My father finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Are you with someone?" "I am. His name is Marcus. He truly knows me. He truly loves me. And I love him in a way I never could love Sarah, no matter how much I wanted to." "Him?" my mother repeated, as if the word felt foreign in her mouth. "Yes, Mom. Him." My father stood up. For a second, I thought he was going to hug me. But he just stood there, looking at me like he was seeing a stranger. "You need to understand." He started, then stopped. Tried again. "We raised you with values, with principles, with the expectation that I'd be straight," I finished. "I know, Dad. I tried. God knows I tried." "Don't talk like that," my mother said, her voice cracking. "Don't talk like we did something wrong. We just wanted what was best for you. And you gave me that. You gave me an education, opportunities, love. But you can't decide who I am. That's not in your hands." Tears began to stream down my mother's face. She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. My father put a hand on her shoulder, but his eyes were still on me, confused, hurt, lost. "I need time," he finally said. It's a lot to take in." "I understand. And your mother needs time too." I nodded. "I don't expect you to understand immediately. I don't expect you to be happy. But I needed you to know the truth. Because I love you. And I don't want to lie to the people I love anymore." My mother looked up. Her eyes were red, swollen. "Are you still our son?" The question broke me. "Always, Mom. It's just that now you're meeting who I really am." "I don't know if I can." She started, but didn't finish. She didn't have to. I knew what she was going to say. "It's okay," I said. And it was true. It hurt. But it was true. "You need to process this. I understand. I'll give you time. But I'm not going back. I'm not pretending anymore." I left that house without the hug a part of me was hoping for. Without the acceptance I secretly desired. But also without the mask I had worn for 36 years. Marcus was waiting in the car, right where I had left him. When I got in, he didn't ask anything. He just opened his arms, and I fell apart. I cried for everything I had lost, for the approval of my parents that might never come, for the perfect son I never was, for the life I had built on sand. But I also cried tears of relief, because finally, for the first time in my life, I was free. In the months that followed, my life reorganized itself in ways I had never imagined. My parents didn't call. I sent messages a few times, trying to keep the door open, but the replies were short, formal, distant. It hurt. God, how it hurt. But I had done my part. The rest was in their hands. Sarah and I finalized the divorce. It was amicable as much as possible. In the last meeting with the lawyers, she held my hand for a second and said, "I hope you're happy, truly." And I believed her. Marcus moved into my apartment. At first, it was weird, sharing space with someone for real. No secrets, no masks, but weird in the best way possible. There's a memory I hold with special affection. 3 months after that conversation with my parents, Marcus and I were cooking together. He was chopping onions, I was sautéing garlic, music playing on the stereo. The window open, letting in the fresh wind of December 2025. "Are you happy?" he asked out of the blue. I paused, spatula in midair, and really thought about the answer. I thought about my parents who still hadn't forgiven me, about the marriage that had crumbled, about the perfect life that had turned out to be a prison. And then I thought about the man beside me, about the freedom of walking hand in hand down the street, about being able to say my boyfriend without hesitating, about waking up every day being exactly who I was. "Yes," I replied. "I am happy." And it was true. Not a fairy tale happiness where everything is resolved perfectly, but a real happiness, earned with pain and courage. A happiness built on truth, not on performance. Marcus smiled. That smile that still made my heart race, and pulled me in for a kiss that smelled of garlic and onions and the future. Because that's what authenticity gives you. Not a perfect life, but a real life. Your life. If you've made it this far in this story, I want to tell you one thing. The perfect husband was a lie, but the imperfect, authentic, true me, that is someone I can finally love. And if you are living a life that isn't yours, if you are wearing a mask because it's what's expected of you, know that you are not alone. There are thousands of people going through the same thing, hiding who they really are because they are afraid of rejection, judgment, loss. I won't lie to you. Being authentic comes with a price. Sometimes that price is relationships you thought would last forever. Sometimes it's the approval of people you love. Sometimes it's the comfortable life you built on false foundations. But living a lie also has a price. And that price is your soul. The choice is yours. But if you decide to be free, know that on the other side there is a community waiting for you. People who will accept you exactly as you are. True love. Real peace. Today, when I look in the mirror, I recognize the man looking back. He's not the perfect husband. He's not the ideal son. He's not the person everyone expected me to be. It's just me. Imperfect. Authentic. Free. And that is more than enough. If this story touched you in any way, share it with someone who needs to hear that they are not alone. Because the more we talk about this, the easier it gets for the next person to find courage. The more true stories exist in the world, the fewer people will need to live lies. You deserve love. You deserve acceptance. You deserve to live as your true self. And your authentic self? It deserves space to exist, breathe, and finally, be free. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Mine began in that room, with 3 words. I am gay. What will yours be?